All right, guys, welcome to day 2 of the summit. I hope you're having fun. I hope you've already learned some fantastic things. For this presentation, I'm going to talk about a fiction writer's survival guide to AI. All right. We live in the era of AI, and I know there's a lot of confusing and conflicting information out there, so I am going to endeavor to give you the nuts and bolts of what you need to know about AI as an author and how things currently stand, okay? So first of all, who am I? If you watched my presentation from yesterday, you probably already know this, but in case you didn't, my name is Lisa Hill. I am the summit organizer and host. I'm a USA Today bestselling author. I write 4 different genres, yes, 4. And I'm about to publish my 18th book, so I know a thing or two about story structure, and I've been around the publishing block a few times. I use elements of psychology, spirituality, and energetics to help authors write highly emotional fiction that hooks their readers and creates mega fans. I founded the Legendary Fiction Forge, a membership for authors where they can receive support for writing the best version of their story, knocking around in their heads. And my fiction by design process for crafting stories imbues story with emotion that hooks the reader on a subconscious level. And my passive to powerful technique for editing emotion into your manuscript helps communicate that epic emotion on the page, okay, resulting in highly emotional stories that readers just can't get enough of. But let's get into the AI part of this now that you know who I am. Do you ever wonder, is AI good or bad? Is it illegal? Is it ethical? Is it downright evil? Because people say all these things online, right? Should I use AI in any part of my writing? Do you ever feel scared or maybe shamed by what people are saying online, especially in the bookish world? And maybe then confused because other people praise AI quite a lot. If you are feeling any confusion or confliction at all about writing fiction in the age of AI, this is probably going to be a very powerful training for you. Okay, so listen up. I'm going to give you the hard truths about AI and get into what you need to know to survive this time of AI upheaval, including best practices and even what you need to know legally. Don't worry, I'm going to explain it to you as if you are not a lawyer to make sure you aren't doing anything that will harm you, but so that you can also still take advantages of the good legal and ethical things that AI has to offer writers if you so choose. Okay, you guys have to understand that number one, we are in the wild west of AI right now. Okay, people are still figuring out what it is going to be and what it is going to look like. So that's number one. And number two is it is 100% your decision. So don't let anyone tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. You always have to do what works best for you. But either way, you need to be educated in order to make an educated decision about AI, right? So we're going to talk about why most of what's being said online right now about AI is just noise, why you should not fear AI in terms of book competition, ways to use AI in writing, what you should and should not do or use it for, what you need to know about AI in terms of copyright, plagiarism, and other legalities, and various ways to use AI ethically to help you in your writing. All right. And then I'm going to show you how to write AI prompts to get the best outputs as well. So why most of what's being said online right now is just noise. Like I said, we are in the wild west of AI, which means there aren't any really hard and fast rules or laws about it right now. We're starting to see things going through the courts and set precedents, but really everybody is just going at it all out with very few parameters, and that's why it feels so crazy, okay? But what I want you to understand about AI is that by itself, it is neither good nor bad. It is simply a tool. And certainly people can decide to use it for things that are positive or negative, but the AI itself is just a tool, right? Like anything else. People like to scream online about how it's unethical to use it because it's taking away jobs. Will AI take away jobs? Yes, it probably will take a few away. But what people don't talk about when they say that is that it's also going to create jobs. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that in just a minute. But let's give some examples. Most of us don't remember when cars were invented, right? But I can promise you the same things were said about cars as are being said about AI, maybe in slightly different formats. But people were saying, if we invent cars and everybody has a car, it's going to take away jobs. Did it? Yeah, it took away a few. There would have been fewer wagon drivers and fewer stagecoach drivers and maybe fewer people to look after horses, as fewer and fewer people were using them to, pull their wagons and things. But it also created a lot of jobs because now people need car maintenance and they need people to create those cars. And there's oil changes and tires and a million other things, right? This is just the way things happen with innovation. I really just pulled these examples out of the air, you guys, but what about like self-serve gas stations? Did that take away jobs? Yes, because back in the day, you had to have someone that was employed to pump your gas for you. Very often, people would come out to do a lot of different services on your car while you were getting your tank filled, right? And we don't do that anymore. So it did take away those jobs, but it created other jobs as we learned to build better pumps and computers came into the picture, right? Same kind of thing. Now, this one is a lot more recent. I do remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the internet was just starting to be a thing, Facebook hadn't been invented yet, and people were talking about how one day we're all going to be connected to the internet, and everyone was going, "Oh, that's scary. I don't know if I like that. Maybe we should, on principle, just not participate in the internet." And didn't last very long. Did it take away some jobs? Sure. It certainly changed the landscape for reading books, right? But the point is, people always say these things. So that's why I say that a lot of what's being said online right now is just noise. And while you'd certainly want to be educated and smart and common sense about how you use AI, could it make you very lazy? Of course it could. You need to set some boundaries for sure. But I'm going to encourage you not to listen to the naysayers, because this is always what happens when some big innovation comes into the world. And bottom line, just like cars and just like the internet, AI is not going anywhere, okay? Just because you don't like it or you decide not to participate in it, which 100% is your choice, that doesn't mean that it's going to go anywhere. It's still going to be there, right? We're still going to be moving forward with it. So you might as well learn to use it and use it well, which means use it with boundaries. You learn how to use it so that you're not relying on it in a negative way, right? Okay, so the next thing I hear a lot, specifically inside our space, is worry that we're not going to be able to sell our books very well anymore because there's going to be so many AI written books flooding the market. Once again, I'm going to encourage you not to dwell on the negative, because really, I don't see this as a huge problem. Are people writing fiction with AI? Yes, they are, and trying to sell it. Will they attempt to flood the market with it? Probably. So they're not wrong when they say that. But is it something you actually have to stress about? I'm going to say no, and let me explain why. AI is no different than any other human author that you might be competing against. There's no reason to be more stressed out about AI authors, if you want to call them that, than about real human authors. And then people say, yeah, but it means competition will be higher. What if we can't compete? Saying it that way is kind of right and kind of wrong. Will there be more competition in terms of there are more books on the market? Yes, of course. But we're always having more books go onto the market from human authors too. There hasn't been much organic discoverability for writers for several years now. So you still have to dial in your marketing. And if you do that, readers will choose you over AI written books. So if you're completely new to this and you don't understand what I mean by organic discoverability, what I mean is you can't write a book, pop it up on Amazon, and expect it to sell. There's too much competition. So you have to dial in your marketing to get your book to sell. And it has been that way for a while, for several years now. Before people started really writing AI books, that was the case. So nothing's really changed. Even if we get more books that are AI written on the market, if they are not marketed correctly, no one's going to buy them. And even if they are marketed correctly, people are going to like your books because they like you, okay? If you watched my presentation yesterday about the subconscious mind and the reason that readers read books, okay, I'm going to kind of add on to that a little bit here and say that we are energetic beings and we imbue everything we touch and especially everything we create with our energy. And people who like the books that I write, they like them because they like my voice when I'm writing. Like they like the way that I write my books. They like the emotion I put into my books. And they're going to like that no matter what. So it's not like they're going to say, oh, I'm not going to read you anymore because I like AI more. Even if they read an AI book, if they like my books, they're still going to read my books. You see what I mean? So it doesn't really help to stress out about it as long as you are writing a high quality book and have your marketing dialed in, you are going to have fans that love to read your books and will keep reading them, AI books on the market or not. Okay, just the way it is. So think of it this way. The algorithm shows readers books that sell, have high ratings, and that readers like in general. Many, if not most, readers right now are refusing to read AI written books. Either they refuse on principle because they just want to read books that are written by humans, or they refuse because AI books genuinely aren't as good as those written by humans. So there's a lot of talk about how AI can actually write pretty good plots right now. And that's true, they can. But I'm telling you, the emotion is just not there. Even if the book is, pretty good, pretty well written, it's a pretty decent plot, it is not going to have the same emotion and the same energy as something written by a human. It just won't. It doesn't matter how well the AI writes the book, okay? Readers are reading fiction for the emotional experience, and they will always get a more emotional experience from a human author, from your unique experience, the unique way you see the world, than from an AI that does not have a soul. Okay, so this is not something you have to worry about. Either way, human books are going to continue to get more attention and sales because readers want to read those more than they want to read AI, and because of the emotion, they're going to be better written books. Okay, and that means human written books will continue to get more attention from the algorithm as well. Will hackers try to work the system? Of course, they always do. There's always someone who does. But those kinds of things, even when they work, generally don't work very well or for very long before they're shut down. Now, let's put the algorithm aside for a minute. Try to think of your success in terms of what you need to build from your end rather than what the online competition is. Okay, stop worrying about who's doing what and what AI is doing and how many books are on the market. Just think about what you need to do to achieve your success and focus on that. So let's break it down in numbers so you can see what I mean. A well-engaged email list can easily yield you 20 to 50% sales or higher when you come out with a new book. Now, I kind of guessed on the lower end of the spectrum that is pretty common, but there are plenty of people who have 60 and 70% of their list buying their books because their email list is just that engaged. But I'm going to go with a lowish number of, say, 30% for our purposes today. So let's say you put out a new book every 90 days. And to sustain you, you would like to make $2,000 a month. Your book sells for $3.99, which means you're getting around $2.75 after Amazon takes its cut. So if you have a backlist of other books, you're going to be getting sales from those books too. But for right now, so that we're not making it too complicated, we're just going to focus on the new book that you're launching every 90 days. If you want to make 3 months worth of income all at once, that would be $6,000 because you need $2,000 a month, and you're making $275 per book. You do the math. You need to sell a little over 2,000 books, right? Now remember that about 30% of your list will buy it. So then you do the math. You're going to take the number of books and you're going to say, what is 30% of what number, X, is going to equal 2,000, and it is 7,270. So you need a little over 7,000 subscribers on your list. So my point is that marketing is not about your online competition. It's really not. Organic has gone completely away anyway. It's about your goals and how much you put into your author business, and AI does not figure into that. So let me say too that for some of you who are brand new, these numbers may be a little bit mind-boggling. I remember being new and thinking, I cannot even imagine having 7,000 people on my list. I cannot even imagine selling 2,000 books all at once. But you'll get there. You'll build your list slowly. You'll start with lower sales, and I mean, you might have fewer people on your list, but a higher engaged percentage of engagement. So maybe you only have 3,000 or 4,000 people on your list, but you can get 60% of them to buy your book. And maybe you need more than $2,000 a month. Maybe you're only coming out with 2 books a year and not every 90 days. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want your business to look like, you're just going to work toward that. Continue building your list, continue writing books. You also have your backlist, right? And you'll get there. But I just want to encourage you not to worry about AI being so competitive that you can't succeed. That is a lie. You absolutely can. You just have to focus on what you want and reach toward those goals. Okay? Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about AI. Don't worry about what other authors are doing. Just worry about writing the best book you can write and then working on your goals for your business. So because of that, you don't need to stress out or fear AI competition. Just focus on your books, like I said, and your own business. Okay, should you use AI to write your book in full or any part of it? No. I'm going to say that up front. I do not recommend using AI to write any of your book. We're going to get into the legalities of this, okay? But we'll get into that in a minute. So the reason that I don't recommend this is, number one, there are legal issues, which we'll go into. And number two, it takes away the joy of writing. I mean, the people who use AI to write books are actually not writers. Did you know that? They are using AI to write books and try to make money off of it. But you are all here because you have a story you want to write, and the joy of writing is the point. So why would you have AI take that away from you, right? So understand that there are some basic ways in which you can use AI for writing, and you need to understand what the differences are. First of all, there's AI assisted. This is what it's called. And this is when you use AI to do research, ideas, editing, formatting, that sort of thing. And then there's AI generated, which means AI is directly generating any portion, meaning text or images, of your book. Those are two different things, right? So let's get into the legalities. First of all, we have copyright protection of AI generated text. And this is something I hadn't really thought of before, so it's really interesting. In the US, the Copyright Office has ruled that AI generated text, images, or music, which are created without meaningful human authorship, cannot be copyrighted. Okay? So if an author pastes a prompt and lets AI generate paragraphs or a whole book, that output is considered not authored by a human because it was actually generated by AI. And therefore, it cannot be registered for copyright protection. And what does that mean for you? It means if you publish AI written passages, you may not legally own them. So others could copy and paste your text and republish it as their own, and you would have no standing to sue for infringement. Let that sink in a little bit. So this is why I do not recommend you let AI write any part of your book. You always need to rewrite it in your own words and your own voice, okay? Otherwise, you could get yourself into some trouble legally. Okay, then we have human plus AI, which is a little more of a gray area. The Copyright Office will allow registrations if the author can prove substantial human authorship. So if you use AI to brainstorm ideas, generate rough drafts, or suggest sentences, but then rewrite them heavily in your own words, that is copyrightable. So remember, we said there was AI assisted and AI generated. If you are using AI assistance, meaning it is not actually generating any of the sentences in your book, then that is actually copyrightable because you're just using it to brainstorm, to research, all of that, but it's not actually writing your book. So let's look at a rejection example. I don't know how you say this, Zarya of the Dawn case. An author submitted a comic book created with Mid-Journey AI art. The text was human written. The AI generated art was deemed non-protectable. And the result was that the story text was copyrighted, but the images were not. What does this mean? Authors must differentiate between their own creative work and AI output. Okay. Disclosure requirements from Amazon, KDP, etc. As of September 2023, Amazon requires authors to declare AI use during KDP publishing. There are two categories, the AI assisted or the AI generated. You need to let Amazon know what you're using. This disclosure is not public facing yet, meaning readers won't see it on their product page, but Amazon uses it internally to monitor AI flood issues. So this is the other thing. When people say that it's going to flood the market, Amazon really does watch out for this. And I know that people tend to think of Amazon as the big bad guy. I don't like to think of them that way. Are they always serving their own bottom line before they are serving authors? Of course. I mean, they're a business. That's what they do. But you have to understand that they also will lose money if authors are no longer publishing, right? And if readers will no longer buy books. So it is in their best interest to not let AI flood the market, and they are keeping an eye on that, okay? Other platforms like Ingram Spark and Draft to Digital are moving in the same direction. So once again, Wild West, not everything has been nailed down yet, but they're moving in that direction. So expect more disclosure requirements soon. And you guys, I'm going to really, really encourage you not to be weird about this, not to, obviously you have to disclose by law if it's AI generated, but even AI assisted, just be honest and tell Amazon that you used it for generating ideas. That's not going to be harmful to you, but you need to make sure you're being honest so that they are not having any reason to be mad at you later. Plagiarism risks. This is really interesting. I had never thought of this before I started researching this. So AI models are trained on vast text data sets, books, articles, websites. While they don't copy paste most of the time, they may sometimes output phrases or passages that are too close to copyrighted material. If an author includes these passages unedited, they risk accidental plagiarism. So what this is saying is we usually think about AI as being like other people taking our stuff or AI taking our stories, right? But what they're saying is that if you take something from AI and don't reword it and it accidentally is, a copy paste or close enough that it's considered a copy paste of copyrighted material, you might be plagiarizing another author and not even realize it. Okay. So always run AI assisted text through plagiarism checkers if you're incorporating more than just snippets. Now, here's the real kicker to this: liability questions. If AI outputs copyrighted material, who is liable? Currently, the legal view is that the author who published it is liable, not the AI. Okay, so if you accidentally, because you just copy and pasted from AI, plagiarize another author, you are liable for that. The other author isn't, and neither is the AI company. Once again, this is why you need to always rewrite things in your own words and not copy paste from AI. Do not let it generate any part of what you're writing, because even if you are completely innocent, you did not realize, you were not trying to plagiarize anybody, you are still liable if you do. So don't let AI write any part of your books. Always rewrite it in your own words. So yeah, if you let it generate large portions of your book and it accidentally mirrors another's work, you are the one who is exposed to lawsuits. Obviously, nobody needs that headache. International variations. This is a little more legal mumbo jumbo here, but different regions differ in how they treat AI outputs. US must be human authored to qualify for a copyright, which we covered. In the UK, they have a special provision for computer generated works where the author is the person who arranged for the creation or the prompter. However, this is untested in major cases. So that's interesting, but what they're saying is there's not a major precedent for it in the court, so I wouldn't necessarily rely on it. The EU is moving toward requiring labeling of AI generated content, but hasn't fully settled copyright policy. So once again, people are still just figuring it out, and it is liable to change in the future, so just keep your eye on it. Bottom line, unsettled law, but safest path for authors is to own every word in their narrative. So takeaways for authors: using AI for research, idea generation, character brainstorming, and editing suggestions is safe. Letting AI write narrative passages or whole chapters is dangerous because you can't copyright it. There's a plagiarism risk, and you have to disclose that. Authors should always ensure the final narrative is in their own voice, legally protectable, and fully human authored. Retention and deletion, this is just for your information. So chats, meaning if you've ever gotten on ChatGPT, the actual chats that you have with it are saved to your account until you delete them. Once deleted, they're scheduled for permanent removal within about 30 days, unless extended for legal or security reason. However, due to the New York Times copyright lawsuit, OpenAI is now, which is OpenAI's ChatGPT, is now required to retain all user chats, including those users delete and even temporary chats indefinitely. So you lose the guarantee that the deleted text is actually erased. The data resides in a restricted archive, and while OpenAI states that only a small audited legal and security team will have access to it, the data still exists and may be reviewed as part of legal discovery. So what does that all mean? It means that because of lawsuits and because people are still figuring out AI, that anything you put into AI might be preserved, and they're saying that it's not going to be looked at. People are not certainly selling it or anything. Legal discovery has to do with court cases. So if you were doing something wrong, if you were plagiarizing, if you were hacking, anything like that, they can use your AI activity in court. That's basically what it's saying. And again, they're stating that only a small audited legal and security team will have access, but the data still exists. Do people get hacked? Yes, all the time. So they're just saying that it's not 1000% safe. And you need to understand that when you are deciding to use AI. Now, You might say, okay, well then what's your opinion on it? I don't think this is really something you have to worry about. Let me really just kind of wrap with you for a minute on this. I am a big studier, as you might have figured out from my other presentation, of energetics and energy work and all of those kinds of things, spirituality. And the more that you are in fear of something, the more you are sitting around worrying about it, the more likely it is to happen to you. So what I would say is this is not something I worry about too much. I don't sit around worrying that my information is going to be taken and it's going to be hacked and it's going to, I mean, as long as you're not doing anything wrong that is criminal or unethical, and as long as you don't worry about it, there is such a small chance that anything is going to go wrong and happen to you. And even if it does, I mean, you guys, you try to think of anything you put on the internet, but also anything you put on a computer. Even if a computer isn't hooked up to the internet, which let's face it, most of you are, you're here, you're on the internet, right? But even if you're not, people can still remotely log into that computer. There's ways to access anything that is digital. So anything that you are putting on a computer, think of it like your DNA, right? It's your digital DNA. And in the real world, in the 3D world, we leave our DNA everywhere. We have DNA all over our homes, all over our workplace, all over our cars, but anywhere we go to a restaurant, we go to a friend's house, we go to a meeting, we are leaving, skin cells and hair at the very least everywhere. We're leaving saliva when we're eating on our dishes, on our cups, you know what I mean? And so we can't not leave our DNA somewhere. It's just part of being human. As long as you aren't doing murder and trying to cover it up or something, it's not really something you have to worry about. Just know that it is. And that's kind of how I feel about digital data too. It's always going to be possible for you to get hacked. It's always going to be possible for things like that to happen. But you kind of can't get around that in our day and age. So if you want to write books and you want to make your living on fiction, you just need to be okay with that. And like I said, don't sit around worrying about it and fearing about it. On the contrary, sit around feeling good and that nothing is going to happen because this is a positive thing for you that you're doing. You're always going to have success in your business. You're always going to have a good experience. And you know what I mean? And if you just set that intention that everything's going to be fine, then you don't have to worry about this. Okay. So I think it's something you need to be aware of. I think you need to use common sense. Don't go around putting your social security number into AI or something stupid like that, because that's asking for trouble. But as long as you're using common sense and you're not doing anything unethical, I don't think you have to worry about this. But again, it is your decision. So if you don't feel like AI is for you and you feel very strongly that you should not use it, then go with that. I'm here to support you with that. Anything that you feel for you is right and aligned, follow that, trust that, right? But I'm also going to encourage you not to be afraid of technology. I personally believe that a lot of people that circulate a fear of technology, they're doing it on purpose because they don't want you to have the technology's edge because they're trying to get ahead. So they're going, oh, no, you shouldn't use that. That's bad. That's unethical. But they're using it and they don't want you to be able to compete with them. Okay. Just my opinion, a little bit of conspiracy theory, but I've seen it happen. So I just want you to be aware of this. Okay. So reminder, do not use it to write any portion of your story, but here are some ways for authors to ethically use AI. And this is how I use it personally. You can ask it questions. You can use it to do research, figure out character personality and behaviors. You can use it for editing, genre and trope research, which might be my favorite. And we're going to talk about each of these so I can show you what I mean, okay? Story questions. I'm just going to give you an example. You might say to AI, I am writing a story where this happens, whatever's going on in your story, and my character is currently doing this. In 2 scenes, I need him to be doing this instead. Can you help me brainstorm some ideas for how to get my character from A to C? You might do this a lot and AI will give you some ideas. Now, I don't think that you should automatically take anything AI gives you and just run with it. If you listen to my other presentation, I talked about journaling and accessing your subconscious mind. I think when something jumps out at you that AI gives you, you should immediately start journaling on it, how you can make it yours, what it's going to look like in your story, how you might incorporate it into scenes, and really get your own creative process involved. So AI is just a jumping off point, especially if you're feeling tired or blocked or don't have the first idea, how to solve your story problem. But it can answer questions like that, and it can give you some really good ideas. And notice that that is not it writing your story for you. You're taking it, whatever it gives you, and making it your own and writing it in your own voice, right? Research. I have a character who is a cardiac surgeon. Can you give me an idea of what his day might look like? What kind of cases and patients might he see? This is great because AI can give you all of these things in a matter of minutes. You don't have to find a doctor to call and talk to the nurse and do this research yourself. AI can do it for you in a matter of minutes. Culture, psychology, or psychological and sociological elements. I'm going to show you my ChatGPT for how I recently did this. Okay, so I was actually doing some world building, and I knew that I had several different regions in my world that all had different climates, and therefore they would have different exports and different behaviors. So this is what I wrote into AI. You are an expert on human behavior, especially sociological factors within cities. I need to nail down the behavior of city dwellers in a fictional fantasy world. If a realm had the climate of Washington or Oregon in the US with major products and experts being lumber, fish, and other ocean-related products, what might the core beliefs of the people be? How would those beliefs manifest in their behaviors? Give me some ideas about what their culture might be. And the reason that I put this into AI is because this is not actually informing the plot of my story too much. I already have the main plot nailed down, and we're not even talking about main characters. We're talking about different parts of the world that they might be traveling through. And I want to reflect something that is at least somewhat realistic, even though it's a fantasy world, and that will make sense to readers, right? And I am actually pretty well versed in psychology, but sociology not as much. So AI gives me these things: core beliefs rooted in geography and climate, cultural traits and attitudes, behavior patterns you might see, possible distinctive customs, how could this shape worldview in a conflict, all these things. Now, am I going to use all of this that it gave me? No, I'm going to read through it. I'm going to pick out some things that work for my story, and then I'm going to expound on them through journaling and consulting my subconscious mind, right? That's what I'm going to do. So I'm not relying directly on it, and I'm certainly not letting it create my story for me, but it's a jumping off point so I can do some research. Then it said, I can give you some fantasy specific twists. I actually said yes. Know that AI will always ask you if you want something more. Usually I don't, but in this case I said yes, I would like that. So it gave me a whole bunch more stuff that I could look into and decide if I want to use it. Then I did this for several regions. Like I said, there was that region, and then I did the exact same thing again, but I said if a realm was a frozen tundra with settlements being few and far between and peopled by tough trapper and trader types, and with major products and exports being ice, large game, and animal skins, what might the core beliefs of the people be? All the same questions. And it gives me that for a different type of climate and a different type of living situation for these people, right? And I went through and did that for each of my regions so that I could do really detailed world building about what it might look like, okay? So that's what I mean when I say you can use it for research. This is world building research, and to figure out cultural, sociological, even psychological types of things. All right, let's go back to the slides. All right, genre and trope research. This may be my favorite. So here's the thing, guys. When I started writing about 20 years ago, aging myself a little here, there was a lot of talk. I remember being taught more than once that Amazon was this gift, and it's a gift in many ways, but what they were talking about specifically was genre and trope research, because when there was nothing digital and we didn't have Amazon, there was a reason that there was only traditional publishers. Those publishers were big enough, they had enough reach, they had enough money and resources that they could do research on what the market wanted, okay? But if we don't know what the market wants, it's hard to give that to the market. Suddenly with Amazon, we have all this information at our fingertips. We can go through what is selling right now to see what the market wants. We can go through reviews. We can read the books on the bestseller list and know exactly what the readers are looking for, right? And that's amazing that we can do that. But even saying that, it takes some time. You know, we're talking about 20 or 30 hours worth of research, going through different reviews and maybe reading some books and sifting through bestseller lists. And we were very encouraged to do that so that we understood what the market looked like for our genre, right? Well, we've now come to the new iteration of this. We can use AI for trope and genre research, and it can do it in a matter of minutes. So once again, I'm going to go to my ChatGPT and show you what I mean. Okay, so this is a chat that I did when I was helping one of my students who writes urban paranormal fantasy. And this is all that I put into ChatGPT. You are an expert in the fiction genre of urban paranormal fantasy especially using glitch in the matrix tropes. What kinds of things do readers say they enjoy most about this genre? So again, this is coming from a student who uses this particular trope. It tells us readers who love urban and paranormal fantasy with glitch in the matrix tropes tend to be drawn to several key elements. And they tell you what those are. And the thing is, AI knows this because it can read anything that is public facing, including book reviews. Okay. So rather than us having to go through, read all of these book reviews for hours and hours and pull, the kinds of things that we're seeing over and over again in order to come to these conclusions, AI did it for us in like 30 seconds. Okay. And we have all of these possibilities here. Then I said, same thing, you are an expert in that same genre and trope. What kinds of things do readers say they hate most or are most annoyed by in this genre? And it tells us these. And this is great because you can make sure that you're not making these mistakes. Fake, deep philosophical ramblings, that actually makes me laugh. Overuse of dream sequences and hallucinations, too many coincidences without payoff. So this can tell you what not to do and what
pitfalls to avoid.
Then I looked at this, same genre and tropes. You're an expert and a social media expert as an author and of this genre and subgenre. Can you give me a list of 20 ideas for what to post on social media that will be engaging and pull in my ideal reader? And it will give you these posts. Now, I'm going to talk about how to do these prompts so that you're getting really good outputs here in a minute. You can do obligatory scene research so that you're making sure that you're hitting all of your genre conventions. You guys get the idea. Okay, this is what AI can do for us, but this is not it writing your story. This is you doing research on your genre, on your tropes, and on your ideal reader, and you can do it in minutes. Okay, it's fantastic. I love using AI to do genre and trope research. Editing. Okay, I have used it for editing, but I do have a few caveats here. You want to be very careful when you're editing. You have to tell AI not to make changes to your manuscript or it will. Okay, you have to be very intentional about that. So you can use it for formatting, putting into paragraphs, or adding in punctuation, especially if you dictate. If you don't dictate, you probably won't need it to use it for this, but I dictate sometimes. And so when you dictate, which means speaking your story into a recorder rather than typing it, and then you transcribe it, very often if you use various softwares to transcribe it, you end up with a block of text. So I've put that into AI before and said, hey, just using generally accepted formatting, can you put this in 2 paragraphs for me? And it will, which is great. But I did notice the first time that I did it, that it was changing some of my sentences. So I had to scrap that completely, redo my prompt, and tell it, do not change anything. Just take what is already there and put it into paragraphs, or do not change anything, but please add in punctuation. You know, it's not going to be perfect. There are times when it puts it into paragraphs in a way that's really wonky and I have to go through and fix them, or where it still misses punctuation. You know, AI is not perfect, but it does help and can help you cut down on some work, right? So don't let it change anything. Ask it to format without changing the content. Line editing, once again, you do not want AI changing anything because that is going to be the same thing as it generating your sentences. All that I do when I've used AI for editing is ask it to mark typos, passive voice, bad grammar, etc. You can ask it to highlight those things and then export them in a Word document or something so that you can see where the problems are. And then you fix what you want fixed, the same as you would from a human editor. So once again, there are going to be people who are going to argue that doing editing this way is letting AI help you write your book. But it's really no different as long as AI is not changing anything and you are the one doing the changing. It's no different than having an editor go through with a red pen or a yellow highlighter and show you where there's problems and then you fix them. You don't have to credit that editor with writing the book, right? They're just helping you edit by showing you where the problems are, but you have to fix them. So once again, you just have to be really intentional, make sure and tell AI not to change anything, but just to mark things. And then it just helps you with your editing. Developmental editing, this can be helpful where you can just have it analyze maybe your plot or your outline and ask what you're missing, what's working, what's not working, that sort of thing. And again, there are other programs that already do this. Pro Writing Aid does this and it uses AI to do it. So it's not brand new. The only drawbacks here would be people are going to say this is AI writing your book. I don't think it is. If it's making some suggestions that you take, I mean, again, don't let the AI write it, but if you're taking the suggestion, it's really no different than if, as a book coach, you and me were hashing out your story and I gave you some suggestions and you used some and didn't use others. You're not going to say, I wrote your book. I'm just a sounding board for you. And that's what AI can be as well. The other thing is some people do not want to put their entire outline into AI because once again, it may not be deleted. There is always that possibility, but again, that's a judgment call that is completely up to you. So again, as long as it's not rewriting your book or changing anything, it's fine. It can give you pointers, but only you should make changes. Now, rewriting sentences, of course, is a gray area. If you're only rewriting a sentence here and there, or parts of a sentence, like how do I say this better because it's clunky, then that's probably okay. Remember it said specifically if you're using more than snippets, that's when you need to be careful. That's when you need to declare. That's when you need to run it through plagiarism software. But if you're literally rewriting the second half of a sentence, one clause, it's, everybody's using the same words to write their book. So it's just a common sense thing, you guys. Don't stress about it overly much, but just know that if you're rewriting many sentences, paragraphs, anything like that, then that's where you're letting AI generate it for you. So yeah, if you're rewriting most of your sentences, for example, you're straying into dangerous territory. All right, so another thing that I wanted to include is just ChatGPT versus Claude, because this is something that I have looked into personally. If you're using free versions, so there's a free version of ChatGPT, and then there's a paid version, which is about $20 a month. And then there's a higher version that's mostly for businesses. But if you're using the free versions, Claude is actually much better at formatting and editing. It's considered a more intellectual model, if you will. So it often does better with copy, which can mean website copy and email copy, but that does include fiction writing. So if you're paying for ChatGPT, it's a higher model that you can train, and then it does much better at formatting and editing. So what I noticed is that sometimes, like when I dictated, I would try to get ChatGPT to format it just into paragraphs, and it didn't do a good job at all. I pretty much had to redo the whole thing. And then I would, once I had formatted it into paragraphs, I would put it in again, just like a part of my chapter and say, will you put in, for example, quotations around the dialogue? And it would say that it did it, spit it back out, and there were no quotations in the entire document. So it just wasn't doing it, right? But when I paid for ChatGPT, then it did it because it's a better model. However, Claude, the free version, would actually do it and did a really good job with the formatting and putting in the punctuation. So if that's something that you do want to use AI for, like putting in your scene or your chapter and asking it to format it or punctuate it at all, Claude did a really good job. Free, the free version did. ChatGPT free did not do a very good job. So just so that you're aware, if you're wanting to use it, I would go with Claude. Other writing programs like Pro Writing Aid are still excellent choices. I still use Pro Writing Aid for various things. They were always AI, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand. People think AI just came around in the last few years. You guys, Google was always AI. Every search engine was always AI. It's just more sophisticated now than it used to be. And so anyway, Pro Writing Aid and all programs like that help with authors with writing, they were always AI. And the makers of those programs are always updating them as AI progresses. So they're going to get better and better too. So if you prefer something like Pro Writing Aid that you trust, then yeah, 100% go with that. All right, so finally, I'm going to show you how to create AI prompts to get the best outputs. If you're going to use AI, you need to use it intentionally and intelligently, okay? Here's the problem. If I put into AI, hey ChatGPT, I'm an author. Can you give me 5 social media posts that I can put on Instagram to promote my book? It will give you those posts, but because you weren't very specific, it's just going to give you 5 random posts. And those 5 random posts may not have worked. They might have flopped for the authors who posted them, right? It might have not have done anything to grow their following or their audience or promote their book, okay? So you have to be intentional. You have to be specific. Every prompt you put into AI actually needs to be quite long and quite detailed if you want to get high quality answers from AI, okay? So here's how I'm going to tell you to do your prompts. First of all, you're going to tell it how you want it to answer. And generally, I do this in the format of you are an expert at. So tell it what persona to answer as. Because if you just say, give me social media posts, it could be like a layperson that knows nothing about marketing and just gives you random social media posts. If you say you are an expert in social media posts that go viral, it's going to pull from posts that did do really well, that did go viral, that will serve you and give you those. So you want to be very specific in how it's going to answer or from what persona to answer. Then you say the results you want, like what you actually need it to do. Then you're going to give it information or examples to follow, okay? So that it has context for what you're asking it. Then you're going to tell it how you want it to give you the outputs. It can format them in a lot of different ways. Most people just allow it to list the information in the chat, and that's totally fine if that's what you want, but you can also ask it to put it in a table or put it in a Word document that you can download to your computer. Most people don't think about this, but this is something you can do to make it a little easier. And then here's the real trick here. Rewrite the prompt. Tell AI to rewrite the prompt so that you learn how to communicate with it. So I'm going to give you examples on my ChatGPT. Okay, so here's one that I just recently did for my students to show them how to write these prompts. This is what I said. You are an expert in social media posts, specifically posts that help fiction authors who write high fantasy grow on Instagram. So this is part one. It's the persona. I want somebody who's an expert and specifically on posts for fiction authors who write this genre. You see how detailed that is? And I even mentioned Instagram because the posts that work on Instagram might be a little different than posts that work on Facebook or TikTok, right? And then I tell them what I need, right? The results I need. I need some social media posts that will grow my following and help me bring awareness to my published books. Can you give me 10 examples of social media posts that are engaging and curiosity driven? So that I'm telling it specifically what I need and then asking it for the help that I need from it. Now, when you're doing social media, here's a little tip for you. You're going to want to use these words a lot. Engaging, curiosity driven, and you can also use the word viral. Now, of course, nothing is going to guarantee that any social media post you do is going to go viral. But the reason you use those words is because then AI will pull from posts that are engaging, that are curiosity driven, that are more likely to go viral because they're better written posts. Okay, so these are posts that are going to be helpful to you rather than just it giving you some random post that an author once did that completely flopped, right? Then I'm going to give it some more information and context for what I need. Please include the hook, the copy, and ideas for the images. So I'm telling it exactly what I want. And if there's any other information that is relevant that I think it needs, then put that in there. Now, if you're doing this for your book, I actually would put more information in there. You might want to say, a couple of lines about what the plot is, or who your main character is, or what your main character's biggest struggle is. And that will help it generate posts that are specific to your story rather than specific to the genre at large. Okay, so put in as much information as you can. And then I'm going to say how I want the outputs. Please put these in a list and format them in a Word document that I can download. Then here's the rewrite. When you finish these outputs, please immediately rewrite this prompt so the next time I can get the same or better outputs in one shot, okay? So as you can see, this is not, please write me social media posts. This is a long prompt with all these parts so that you're getting really detailed, really high quality outputs, okay? So this is what it gave me. I created your 10 Instagram post ideas for high fantasy authors with what you asked for, and then here's this. I can click on this and it will download to my computer. And then here's the rewrite. This is what it did for the rewritten prompt. You are an expert in social media posts for fiction authors, especially those who write high fantasy. Please create a downloadable Word document with 10 engaging, curiosity-driven Instagram post ideas that will help me grow my following and promote my published books. For each post, please include these things. You see what I mean? So it will give you what you want, but my point is that you want to make sure that you are doing this intentionally and effectively. Otherwise, you're not going to get as good of outputs from AI. So when you hear people saying, what I got from AI was crap, I mean, certainly AI is not perfect and it's not always going to give you exactly what you're looking for. In fact, when you experiment with it, you'll actually learn to be more direct about what you're saying, because based on the information that it gives you, you can tell if it's understanding you or not. Sometimes you're just like, that's not what I want. It's not understanding what I want. And maybe you just need to word it differently. Okay. But the point is, They have a point. AI is not perfect. It's not going to give you perfection, right? But a lot of times when people say that, it's because they're not putting in very good prompts. They're putting in one sentence prompts and then they're mad that they're not getting really high quality outputs, but that's not the way AI works, okay? You have to be very specific and intentional with it, all right? So I am going to give you, in the caption, there is going to be a PDF graphic where you can see these steps for writing really good prompts. Okay, so the more you do it, the better you get at prompts and getting the answers that you want. It will give you some answers that don't work, but when it does, examine your prompt because you probably misguided it with what you said without realizing it. So it takes a little bit of practice. All right, so once again, resources in the caption. There's a PDF guide to AI prompts. I'm going to put my slides there for anyone who wants them. There's also a link to the Legendary Fiction Forge, which is my membership for authors. Remember, you can get the first month for $17 so that you can decide whether it's for you or not. And then if you don't cancel, it will just renew at the regular price. And I'm also going to put a link here for my free 10 universal plot points to craft any story mini course, which helps you figure out where you're going with your genius idea, you know, what it's going to look like in your story, and also helps with pacing. That is pretty much it from me today, guys. I hope that this was helpful from you. I hope you learned something about AI. Once again, it is completely up to you whether you want to use AI or not. Just understand the laws around it, understand how to use it ethically, and don't be trying to use it in a way that you're like trying to get away with using it. If you're going to use it, use it. If you're not going to use it, don't use it. Either way is fine. Don't let anyone shame you or try to be critical of you. Whatever you decide is 100% your right to decide. Okay. But I hope that this was helpful so that you can make a little bit more informed of a decision. And that is all. So make sure and check out the resources in the caption and just have a blast at the summit. I hope you learn lots and I wish you all the best on the books that you are writing and will write. Know that I believe in you. You can do this. You've got this. And if you need more help, be sure to look me up. Bye.